Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. It is an afternoon show for me, which I am super happy about. The second one where I am technically on the clock right now, but I have to work. Calendar set to lunch. So if any coworkers or my manager are watching, this is my lunch break. Um, I'm doing a special lunch show because, again, we are going across the pond to someone I'm very happy to be talking to. I've actually had his first book on my docket. I checked Goodreads since 2022. And it has always been sitting there. The cover was amazing, which really initially drew me in. And everything I've heard along the way has been great. So when I saw that he posted about book three coming out, I was very anxious to rush there and message him. And to my happiness and all of yours, he agreed to join us today. So without further ado, welcome, Mr. Justin Lee Anderson.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How's everything going?
Not bad, thank you. Not bad.
It's
As I
always so
said,
fun
the,
when
the
we
voice
pop.
is starting to go after three events in a row, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, this is a busy start to the week for you. Well, it makes
Yeah.
sense with I'm going to pop the cover up here because The Damned King released yesterday, and
Yep.
book three. I
Yep.
read books one and two over the last couple months and devoured them, which really says a lot. I have a couple of books that I'm always reading at any given time, but all of them took a back seat once I started with this series. I loved it. Two 5 stars, where I don't even have to say 4.5 rounded up. Legit 5 stars that I've read so far.
Thank
So
you.
I am very grateful that you're here, and I appreciate it. How's the release been going for you?
It's do you know it's weird because it has been coming for so long that up until we had the live in-person launch last night in Edinburgh, and I think that's the first time it felt properly real because I handed this in like I think it was the end of May or June last year.
Oh wow!
And so it's taken a long time to come out, and that's just publishing works like that sometimes, um, and it has just seemed like forever, really. So it's been coming and coming and coming for such a long time, and I've been desperate for it to be out for people to get a chance to read it. Um, and what's really pleasing is now that I'm seeing people reading it. People are reading it quite quickly. Some people got advanced copies, and I'm starting to see reactions, and the reactions are great, and I'm really enjoying them. So it's good. I hope it gets spread around enough that a lot of people get to read it, and a lot of people get to come back and tell me what they think of it, because I always enjoy when people just come back and let me know. Even if it's just people let me know about like one moment. There's one particular moment in this book that I think 3 or 4 different people messaged me on social media and were like, "Holy shit, man!"
Oh
And I'm
no!
like, "Nice, yes."
Always a
And it
good
wasn't
sign.
particularly a moment I was expecting to be like. It was a moment I wrote thinking, "I think that works." But yeah, people are coming back and like, "Oh, that was amazing." I'm like, "Oh, excellent, yes, okay." So yeah, it's really good. The feedback's been great.
Oh,
One review yesterday morning referred to it as the Empire Strikes Back of the series, and I was like, "Yep, I'll take that. That's great. That's
I saw
great
that
feedback.
too, and that should just be the tagline on every future book, where it's just like
That's it.
that is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as high praise as you can have in a form
Exactly.
like that. But it's
Yeah,
been very funny to watch. Well, hear that you say that because the first two books had a couple of those moments as well, where I finished book one, and I don't think I even shut the Kindle off and bought book two immediately. Um, where
excellent.
that happened, and I was just like, I wanted to make sure I was all up to date before we spoke anyway. But I usually try to give like a breather in between, something short, to kind of just to refresh a little bit. But after the book one drop, I was like, fuck, 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 and just bought it right away and kept going. So to hear more of those coming, and it's something that you didn't even consider. That I was going to ask that because there are a couple of things that happened throughout books one and two, and especially one of I think the highlights of the series so far is there's so many phrases that you write. I have a couple written. I'm not going to do it because I'm not a voice actor, and I don't want people to be like, I'm not even going to check it out now because I won't do it justice. But when you come up with something that is well written like that, or a big enough twist that people are commenting on it, do you know right away, or is it kind of something you look back and see in like the edit stage, or when you do like the alpha beta readers where it clicks?
Um, there are certainly some things that I'm working towards being, you know, mini climactic moments, or like moments that people are that are gonna catch people's attention. My sister came to the book launch last night, and she had already started reading the book because I gave her one of my advanced copies, and she said she just got to a particular point, which I won't obviously spoil. And she was like, and I just got to that point, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, do you know, when I wrote that, that's exactly the reaction I was hoping for. And when I went back and read it in edits, I actually gave myself goosebumps reading it in edits. And I was like, so I love, of all people, I love that it was my sister who had exactly the reaction that I had in like the way I had it pictured in my head. So yeah, I mean, yes, there are some moments I'm writing where what I'm trying to do is create an emotional reaction, or I'm trying to throw in a twist that's going to be exciting and it's going to change things, and it's going to be that kind of oh my god moment. I love that about storytelling. I mean, the thing I love about anything that I read or that I watch or anything like that is that I really love it when something catches me off guard and does something that I didn't see coming, but that makes perfect sense. Mark Lawrence did it to me recently, and I still give him shit about it every now and again because I'm like, man, I did not see that coming, and it was so well done. And it doesn't happen often because I have this sort of writer's head where I analyze story as I'm watching it. And so I regularly, I'll pick up visual clues and stuff, especially when we're watching stuff, and I'll be like, oh, he did it, or, this is going to be what's happened, or that's blah, 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 whatever. And so what I really love is when something surprises me. I really enjoy that. And so a lot of what I try to do within the way I'm telling the story is to have those moments that kind of really surprise people, but also which, looking back, make perfect sense.
Yeah, and it's the trail of breadcrumbs. When you go back and look at it, it's like flawless. Like that makes sense now. I could piece it together, but I get caught off guard all the time, and I don't know if it is because I'm not. Well, I know it's not. It's not that I'm not 100% paying attention. I'm just so deep into it that I can't see the forest through the trees sometimes. Where people explain it to me and be like, "How'd you not pick up on this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I was reading The Awesome. Like I wasn't looking at like what's going to happen 200 pages in advance. I'm doing it right then and love that. But when it gets explained to me, I feel like you guys as authors have really kind of torched my mental view on all other media, because I'll watch shows with my wife now, or other movies or things where it's like, this is story from A to B. And I'm like, oh man, wait for C to happen. And then this is going to happen. And this is just going to be a mess. And they're like, it's not that type of story. And I'm like, oh,
no, I'm disappointed.
I know. I'm not so good at trying to like pick things apart the way that like you do with that author mind, where I'm like, oh, this person's going to die and this person's going to be the one who did it. And it's because of this. And it's just like, they ran a red light. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what I was expecting.
But it wasn't that. No, I totally get that. I totally get that. Yeah. And but I think in terms of like the television that we get now, I think I was talking about this last night. In terms of the television that we get now, it has become much more complex and more sophisticated than what we used to get, going back to say like the 90s or even the 2000s. Like what we get now is much more. We get much more long-term storytelling and much more storytelling that actually has consequences, and characters and relationships and storylines develop instead of always resetting to zero and being that kind of, it has to be a jumping on point at any point for people. And I think streaming's been a big part of that, because you can sit down and stream 7 episodes. You don't have to try and catch it on TV when it happens to be on, like you did when I was a kid. So I think it is better, but I do take your point. I think there's the thing is that, you know, we're writing these stories with these kind of, you know, complex ideas, and we're trying to make them twisty and interesting and fun, while also telling an arc that is fulfilling, and also the character development that makes it interesting as well. But our ideal readers are people who, like you, are so absorbed in it that they are just enjoying it, and they're not trying to look ahead and see what's going to happen next, so that when they do experience it, it's great, you know. And the things that I can remember being really shocked by, like, I'd love to go back and watch them again and be shocked by them again, you know,
Yeah.
because I enjoyed that experience so much. And it's just, and I appreciate the craft that goes into it now as well. Like, I really appreciate how well thought out these things were when they catch me off guard and I don't see them coming. Like, oh yes, that was well done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does kind of change your mindset, but I do enjoy it. So it's the kind of thing I enjoy writing, because it's the kind of thing I enjoy experiencing.
Yes, which works out very well. I'm going to go back just to talk about book one, The Lost War, which again, I already mentioned. I'm going to go back to the character comment that you made as well, because I wanted to go into that. But just very quickly, the covers for your series, amazing. And I didn't realize Jeremy Wilson did them
That's right.
until it was
Yeah.
just pointed out to me.
Yeah.
Like one
He's
of my
a great artist.
amazing how it's been great working with him. I imagine this has to be exactly what you pictured with this, the way the story develops.
I don't work directly with Jeremy. It goes through the art director at Orbit, obviously, and she coordinates all of it and does an amazing job. But Lauren Panapinto, her name is, and she's great. But I get input into, in terms of like what characters should be on there and what should the characters look like. And then I get to see sketches and stuff and come back and forth. But I mean, one of the things I love about Jersey, I've always liked stuff that cleverly uses white space, like just as a design aspect in general. I love the clever use of white space, and that is just that's like the core of what he does well. The way he uses the white space and like one single other prominent color to produce such a vibrant look, and yet still have so much detail and it just blend together. I think he's just amazing. I love it.
Yeah, this jumped right off at me, and that was what originally, when I was first looking at books a couple years ago, getting into it. That's why this was on the shelf for me for so long. That was instantly, oh wow. So that's great, and everyone since then I'll show them has been equally great with that unique color. Like that first one was
they're
like
back here. If you can see them, I don't know if you can see them on my shelf, but they're all back here.
I love like the different type of color. It's like that greenish. Their orange is on book 2, like the dark blue on book 3. It's very unique. It's not the usual colors that you see, so I feel like it makes it pop and stand out as now distinctly yours. So I think it's awesome. But yeah, what I wanted to ask originally before jumping into that, the way that we were talking about the shows and the way that things are written and created now with the characters, do you think that was the biggest challenge you had in book 1? Because you have a cast of characters, which I loved book 1. It brought me back to that early days of reading where it was gathering the troops of this is the cast and all the roles that they're going to play, and this is the journeys that they're going to go on. It was the first book I've read like that in a little bit, so I think that's why I fell in love with it so quickly. But all of the characters have obviously their own personalities and mindsets and everything like that, but they have a different moral compass along the way from each other. And kind of, without getting into deep spoilers, a lot of the back and forth conversations that they have very different impacts on the world that they're living in, that you've created. Can you give some background on how you were able to create that and have it work out so well?
So what was important to me in creating the characters was to, I mean, first of all, have them be as real as possible, but also to always try to understand, because of their lived experiences, because of where they've been, because of what they've been through, what their perspectives and what their motivations are going to be, and what they're then going to be motivated to do. So one of the things that I do, so the way I write generally is I refer to it as wayposting. So I generally I know the beginning and the end, and then I know certain wayposts that we need to hit along the way to get from the beginning to the end. And then in between, I try to let the characters drive what happens in between each of those major sort of plot points or reveals or whatever it is. And when I get stuck, what I do is I sit down, I write down all the main characters, and I basically write down like where they are, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and then from all of that, what are they motivated to do next? And when you understand your character's motivations, and when you're always kind of considering your character's motivations, it kind of brings these things up naturally, because often you'll find that, you've got two main characters who are motivated to do completely opposing things, or perhaps you're in a situation where everybody's got a motivation to do a particular thing, but one of them is absolutely not going to do anything else except this one thing. So no matter what anybody else is doing, they're doing this, and that's that. And so understanding their motivations and understanding that allows you to create the kind of conflicts where, you can have people who ultimately want the same thing, but their view of the world is such that they fundamentally can't see each other's perspective on how to get there. Mm-hmm. So they think like, right, this is the way to get there. This is clearly, we must take this path. And you've got another person with a completely different life experience and completely different personality and a different emotional investment who's like, well, no, clearly it's this path. And, there's no way of them to actually, they can't come round to each other. It's just, it would involve changing their entire kind of paradigm of the world. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to butt heads, despite the fact that what they ultimately want is the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoy that dynamic. I like the idea of being able to present something of like, look, these two characters are at loggerheads, but neither one of them's wrong. Mm-hmm. And from their own perspective, from within their own heads and their lives, they can only make the decision they're making. It makes perfect sense to them. And just being able to kind of explore that and play with that and show people that, I think, was important to me, and it was a lot of fun to do.
Yes, and I think the two biggest characters that I'm sure you're even thinking of explaining it, and I had on the side, it's Aranak and Samale, who I'm sure I just butchered those names horribly.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Whew, let's go. Their big thing is Samale is one of the Whitethorns, who is very devoted to religion, God, everything like that. Aranak is not. So is that based on some kind of inspiration in real life, where the way you kind of just explained, where two people want the same thing? I'm not going into any spoilers about 1 or 2, but those two, especially in book 2, are very much at each other's throats, especially for the second half of it. But as you're reading through both POVs, it is kind of like, well, no, you make sense. How can he not see that? And then it switches, and it's just like, why is she being so stubborn? Like, how does this not get along? So especially with something like religion, what made you decide to kind of focus on that topic for those characters?
So I've always, I'm not a religious person, but I've always been really interested in religion, faith, kind of existentialism in general. I've spent a lot of my life from when I was really quite young, kind of contemplating existence and sort of our place in the universe. And so all of that I found interesting. I did a couple of years of philosophy at university, and I find all of it really interesting. And also from the perspective of the kind of societal, the way it affects society, and the way people are, again, can be at loggerhead in society. The notion that, people who are religious and who are atheists or agnostic or whatever understand each other or don't understand each other. I find all of it really interesting, and it was something I wanted to get into in terms of a lot of the conversations that they have. So, but I also wanted to present it in a way that was not coming from one perspective or the other, that was kind of going, well, here's this perspective and here's this perspective, and having them being able to kind of respectfully disagree or respectfully try to understand each other's perspective. But also, in the way that Aronok does that, he's a bit mischievous about it, in particular with Samhaeli, whereas he's used to being able to have those conversations with somebody else that they play off each other more. They're both a little bit mischievous about it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Samhaeli doesn't appreciate it quite as much as he's used to.
Yeah, not as big of a pushover.
Yeah, and there is no give in Samhaeli. I mean, Samhaeli has a very clear vision of the world in black and white, and good and bad, and right and wrong, and there's no question in her mind at any time that if there is a right and wrong thing to be done, she's going to do the right thing. That's just, it is at the core of her personality. It's who she is. It's who she's kind of been raised to be. But some of the story development is that she starts to learn that actually there's a lot more gray in the world than she's really been able to see before, and that decisions that might seem straightforward to her are actually a lot more complicated when there are unforeseen, unintended consequences, of actions. So a lot of her journey is kind of coming from a very straightforward right and wrong view of the world to actually it's quite a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, it was very interesting to read, because it's not like she was naive, but it is a very black and white type thing. And especially after a certain event happens in book 2, I've gotten very good at not spoiling anything. But after something happens in book 2, when she's in one of the pubs talking to another character and it starts getting fully explained, you can start to see like the wheels turning in her head, and it's just like, oh, so this happened, and then this, and then that, and you could start to see the realization and the growth in her along the way, which was very fun to read. It was nice to see that, just to see characters not just evolving, but no one wants to see someone black and white the entire time, because it's like, I know what they're going to do every time they're on the page, if that's who they are. So I'm not sure how other people feel, but I thought she was one of the strongest characters across the 2 I've read so far, watching her journey, which has been awesome. And
I liked writing her a lot. She's one of my favorite characters to write, because she's for all that on the surface level, for all that she is quite straightforward, she's actually very complex. And complex and enjoyable to write as well. Though that is interesting, because I was just talking about this last night at the launch. There was another reviewer who got on an early review who hates her, can't stand her, and I was like, okay. And this is, and I take this actually as quite a big compliment, is that people have genuinely like massively opposing opinions of the same characters. And I think that's really fascinating. Like, I love that. I think most of the main characters anyway, of the sort of core 7 or 8 characters, most of them, somebody has told me they're their favorite character. And I'm like, well, that's amazing that they're all rounded enough and have enough of a kind of personality and a role that people like them or hate them. Like, there's a couple of people that there are a couple of characters who are, they butt heads, and so some people take sides, and they're like, well, no, I hate her because she's awful. It's like, but is she, or does she just, is she just coming from a different perspective? So no, I really like that a lot. But yeah, a lot of people really like Samhaeli, but apparently some people really don't like her, and I love that. It's really interesting.
It's needed. It's like one of those things where it's like, because Aronok is also awesome, probably one of my other top few favorite characters, but if you're going to have them butting heads, like you said, very easy to take sides. Like, it's funny the way that we see that, because I'm assuming probably you've watched like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, those shows?
I would see. Now, this is interesting. So I haven't watched The Sopranos. I've never been into gangster things. There's very few gangster things I've ever watched and actually enjoyed. I watched like 2.5 seasons of Breaking Bad, and halfway through it, there's a particular episode. Am I allowed to spoil Breaking Bad? Is that okay?
I think we're past the point.
Has it been out long enough?
Breaking Bad.
So it's the episode where Walter gets his son so drunk that he throws up in the pool. And like, as a dad, I was like, I hate you.
Yeah.
You're a terrible human being and a terrible father. And I don't like anybody in this program. Why am I watching this? And I was just like, that's it. I'm out. I couldn't watch him be such a terrible father to his kid. And I was just like, no, I'm out. That's it.
Yeah,
but I have watched several programs where there are very few likable characters in them that I have enjoyed because they're just really well written. Succession is one that's
Succession's amazing.
Succession's full of terrible people, including a bunch of kids who are broken by their terrible dad. So you know why they're all terrible people. And Succession's amazing. I love that. But yeah, Breaking Bad, I couldn't do it after that one episode. I was like, that I'm out.
It's hard. That was hard. I know, very rough. Especially, I have a 2-year-old, so she's just drinking bottled milk or used to, so no booze yet. But the thing with Family and why I was bringing that up is because they're, especially with those two shows, especially, it's always like Tony Soprano's awesome. What's Carmela doing? Like, kind of fucking up his flow. And it's like Walter White's so cool. He's a drug dealer. What? And Skyler sucks. She's like kind of like the downer. And it's like, just because you like Walter White and think he's a great character and he's so much fun, like that doesn't mean the wife kind of sucks in it. It's like, you know, you don't have to pick a side. And technically, she's in the right. She's going, you're making meth. That's not good. And every I was guilty of it. Watching it, you're literally like, let him cook, like let him go, leave it alone. And then like rewatching it, you're like, wow, I can't believe she didn't want her husband to be like a criminal mastermind and ruin the family. What a bitch. And it's like,
right there you go. And it is. I mean, it's like, I think that says a lot about how you can empathize with the character whose head you get to be inside the most and whose perspective of the world you see the most. And if you really only see one character as the main character and you see everything from their perspective, then you kind of bond with them, and therefore anybody who is an obstacle to them becomes the enemy. You know, I mean, even watching something like Dexter, I'm watching the new Dexter series at the moment, for example. I mean, you know, fundamentally serial killer, but serial killer with a moral code. But that moral code sometimes has to get bent and, if not broken, to protect himself. And you're watching this like, he's not a great person, but he's trying to be a better person. But he's still done some really terrible things. And yet I'm still completely on his side because I'm watching this whole thing from his perspective and I'm seeing what's going on in his head. And so I'm relating to him. And so that one of the things I tried to do was give that to you know, that's why I have so many point of view characters. I think I've got like 6 or 7 point of view characters in there in the main cast. And I wanted people to see inside all of their heads. I wanted people to see their perspectives and understand their motivations and what they were thinking and why and what their backgrounds are and what their influences are. So that it is more complicated than that, so that you're not just seeing it all from one character's perspective and judging everybody else through their eyes.
Yes. And for a series with so many POV characters, every time it switched, I was like, great, I'm back with this person. It's really rare to not have a book series where you see a person's name on the new chapter and be like, shit. Like, all right, so 3 pages of him, I gotta get to the next person. So very well done for making every character enjoyable to read. Even if they're conflicting or arguing, every one of them was great. And I think one of the things that you did best, and it's kind of going back to the way we were talking about like society and bringing real world aspects into the book. I'm going to butcher this word, so I'm not even going to try. What do you call the starts with the D, I don't even want to say it and embarrass myself. It's what Aronach is.
Okay, so
Oh no. We lost him. My phrasing was so bad that he left. Hello.
hello, am I back?
You are back, and we
Oh,
were
for some reason,
trying
my
to figure out
earphones
how
aren't
to
working.
pronounce
Hang on,
it. I
help
think
me
I
with
scared
that.
you off there. We have
Can you hear me?
yes. Can you hear
Okay,
us?
cool. I'm just going to take my earphones out. I don't know why my earphones aren't connected.
So I asked the chat how to pronounce it because I think my pronunciation was so bad that we kicked you off the internet.
No, I don't know what happened. I got a message saying Cloudflare had gone down, and I had to reboot the laptop to get it to come back again.
It works, see? And I got made fun of for working at IT and not knowing how to fix the problem, but it's always turn it off, turn it back on.
That is exactly what I did.
See?
So yeah, it's a very difficult word to pronounce. The closest I've been able to get is dry, which is difficult. But I just encourage people, if they're trying to read it in their heads, just pronounce it druid, because it is basically the Gaelic word for druid.
Wow.
So
All right.
if it's easier when you're reading it, just read it as druid.
All right. I feel bad because I made fun of Bill for saying it's not Druid Bill. And
Yeah, I mean it isn't, but it is the Gaelic version of druid. So if you want to make it easy for yourself when you're reading it, just read it as druid.
all right, so we'll go with that. But the second half of that question was the druid is such an interesting idea. We were talking about it in society. Miriam was right as well. And one of the big underlying themes with that power is that we as humans, and especially in the book, obviously, are afraid of what we don't understand.
Yeah.
Because Aronach's trying to do the right thing. A lot of the people, for the most part, I'm no spoilers, are trying to do the right thing. There's the healers, there's all the different abilities that they have. And throughout it, they are just facing so much prejudice and judgment about them beforehand. Aronach can't get a room at the inn, for instance.
Yeah.
So combining that idea and kind of the way that it's based on in real life, how'd you go about coming up with something like those powers and doing such a great job of getting that across in the story, but without it feeling like a lecture? Like, it wasn't like, when he got turned down from the inn, one of the other characters wasn't like, you're a person just like me, where it's like, okay, Justin, we got it. Like, but you did it so tastefully throughout the book so far. How did you go about that, and what made you want to address it?
I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to get into, and I'm very politically minded, and I think a lot about society and the problems that we have, particularly now, in society, and prejudice was one of the things I wanted to get into. But I think what's really difficult for people to do is think about prejudices. People find it difficult to address prejudices that they already have. And I think if you can strip away the context of issues and then present them back in a different context and be like, hey, look at it in this context where it's not something that you have a preconceived notion about. Look how this affects people. Look how it affects the world. Look how it affects everything. Look how it affects all of society. That's what I really wanted to do, and I've taken that further to an extent in The Damned King, in a way that I've really pushed the envelope on that a little bit. And I was really pleased that somebody had messaged me to say that there's a particular character's storyline in book 3 that is very much about prejudice, and the effect it can have on people. And they messaged me to say how much they loved their storyline and how great it was. And so that was really pleasing as well. I was really happy about that. But yeah, I mean, you write stuff in a fantasy world where you then want to talk about things that are happening in our society today. And the way to do that is to come up with metaphors and analogies, and do it in such a way that you're not beating people over the head with it, but you're still hopefully making them think. And whether there's somebody who would already agree with you anyway, and therefore hopefully they're going to see stuff in it that they're going to connect with, or there may be people who've been on the receiving end of it, and therefore maybe they feel seen by it, or maybe it's people who do need to be reading it and thinking about their own attitudes to the world and the way they feel towards other people or issues. I hope everybody can take something from it.
Yeah, it was very well done. Like I said, I enjoyed it very much. It's nice to, like you said, have a metaphor come over from real life into the story, and get the point across in a very clear way. And it's hard because it's just like, I guess it makes you a decent person where you're just reading it and you're like, well, yeah, like this is so I don't want to go too deep into that, but it kind of it was very well done, I feel like. And it was
Thanks,
I guess especially in the environment today, it especially tied in with, because again, all the characters I enjoy reading, so when you start to see the multi POVs, and some have to go through that firsthand and others are watching it and giving their input on it as well, it really does, like, it encompasses everything. And like that circle, you got to see all the different aspects of it and how it affects not just those people who are being discriminated against, but kind of that second level of people watching it who are friends with them, and along the way. So that was really well done. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. One of the things also that was important to me in doing it as well is that I wanted to create a society where I stripped away all the stuff that we normally consider prejudices to be about. So there's no racism, there's no misogyny, there's no homophobia. None of that exists. Like, it's just it all of that stuff is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, I mean, it was very much a conscious choice. It was interesting. I did a panel at a fantasy con quite a few years ago, and we were talking about whether, in sci-fi, often you find that, especially something like, for example, Star Trek, you find the writers are doing stuff that's really aspirational, like aspiring to what we could be.
Mm-hmm.
But in fantasy, you often find people are like, oh, well, it wouldn't have been like that because, you're writing something that's pseudo-medieval. So you have to think about the attitudes people would have had in a pseudo-medieval time. But it's like, well, no, I don't. It's a fantasy world. I can create whatever the hell culture I want in my fantasy world. And I want to be aspirational in my fantasy world. So I'm going to create a fantasy society where they don't have all these, ingrained prejudices that are familiar to us in our world. But I'm going to give them another one that's completely different and founded on something that is actually, as you said, a kind of fear of the unknown and a fear of people who can do things they can't and that they can't understand. And that's a conversation Aronok has with another character at one point, which is a mild spoiler, so I won't say who, but that is a conversation Aronok has. It's like, look, people are afraid of us because they don't understand us, and we can do things they can't. And it's literally a lot of prejudice is driven by fear fundamentally at that level. It's a fear of the unfamiliar and the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it came across very clear and very well done. I'm saying it again, but it drove the point home and very nicely. So again, a touchy subject, but handled extraordinarily well. So very well done with that. Pivoting to book 2, which again I just finished a couple of days ago, The Bitter Crown.
Yeah.
I actually think this book was just as good, if not better, than book 1, which I just ranted about for 35 minutes. And I think the main difference between those two, whereas book 1 was we're gathering the squad together, we have to go do this, and we're going to, find out about the war, the whole backstory. We're going from place to place. There was other characters introduced in book 2 whose sole job it was to stay in one location and kind of bring, again, I'm not spoiling anything from book 1, but they're trying to get everything they need planned to go forwards.
Yeah.
And I think it was really well done how a lot of the characters had, we're going to this place, we're going to this, we're going here, you guys stay here, and on the home front, this is what we need done. So did you know that that's the story that you wanted to tell for book two, as opposed to everyone going on that journey and having that plot?
I don't know. I knew. So originally, The Bitter Crown and the Damned King originally were book two of a trilogy. About that story arc that starts at the beginning of The Bitter Crown and ends at the end of The Damned King. Those were my start and end points for what was going to be the middle book. And only as I was writing The Bitter Crown did it become obvious to me that it was too complicated to fit into one book. I was 200,000 words into the first draft of The Bitter Crown and realized that actually there was still a lot of story to go to get to where I wanted to get to. And so it ended up having to be cut back quite a lot. It still ended up, I think the published version is still about 175K. It was interesting. I saw a review that was like that pleased me with The Bitter Crown as well, where they said that I rose to my own challenge that I had set myself with the end of The Lost War, because there was the concern that you do something like, again without spoilers, if you do something like I did at the end of The Lost War, there was the concern of, well, is that actually going to be meaningful? Is it actually going to change? Are you going to do more of the same? Or is it going to change the narrative? And it was always my intention that was going to completely change the narrative. And you can't, when you write something that's like a sort of twisty conspiracy thriller like that, and then it has a denouement and it has a climax, and I reveal, you can't then just do the same thing again. So I knew that it was going to have to be much more character driven, which I was excited about doing anyway. But the core of what book two is about dealing with the end of book one. And it had to be, like, it couldn't be anything else. Of course it had to be that, because it had to be all of the consequences of that, because it changes everything. And so, yeah, I don't know that I knew exactly how I was going to split them all up and what they were all going to do. I think I needed to sit and kind of plan that out. And again, as I say, I like to kind of let the characters lead me to some extent. So I think part of what brought me to that overall plan was thinking strategically in the way that, I can't say who, one of the characters would be thinking strategically, and coming up with this plan of what their priorities were, like how they needed to attack this and the different fronts they needed to attack it on. And so that's what brought me to how they all stood up and where they all went and the directions they all took. And I'm pleased with how it worked out. I'm really pleased with how it worked out. I think all of them worked out in a way that I like the individual sort of three different story arcs that come from the three different groups, and the way they then come back together, and how their different experiences then inform what happens next.
And one of the very cool things about book two, especially with what we just talked about book one, like the thematic elements that kind of made it up, is they were just as strong and kind of philosophical in the second one, where there were a couple of points where it turned into what's best for the greater good. It was still those hard-hitting things like that a person would experience and be like, I don't know. Like I'm just reading it, but if I was in that situation, what am I going to do? And that was awesome to read, obviously, but it was nice that type of level of thinking stayed into it from book one, the way we just talked about, like, the discrimination, all that. It kind of pivoted and stayed. That was all still there thematically, but then there was other ones where, again, I'm not going to give a spoiler or anything, but one of the new characters who gets introduced had to use her ability, which was, altering memories. And, I don't know, when I was reading it, if I was thinking about what you said after, where the memory got altered. I'm not saying anything, but then the question after that was addressed to the person. It's so convoluted the way I'm explaining it. The person who asked her to adjust the memory was then confronted with, did you even think about the impact that I'm going to have to go through to adjust that? Like,
Yeah.
I have to relive those experiences to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
And that was like such a mind-blowing thing for me to even read, because I was just like, just fix it. It's easy. But like the way that was, I get like kind of spit back to that character was like, oh man, like you don't even think about the experiences that people have to go through in order to help others.
Mhm.
So was that something that came into your mind specifically using that memory ability?
It was, yeah, that I mean, that whole scenario you're talking about, I mean, the whole situation is kind of a moral minefield, that one. And once I thought of it, I, what what appealed to me about it was the moral minefield around it,
Mhm.
and what exactly it would mean for everybody involved, and whether it was morally acceptable to do, whether it was okay to do the moral compromise because the outcome was going to be to some extent beneficial. Um, so, what was the aftermath of it going to be? What effects would it have? What knock-on effects would it have? So that whole situation appealed to me because of that. Because, like, can it be that simple a fix? And what will it mean for everybody else involved? All of that was what appealed to me about that, and that's why I wrote that part of the story in, was because I just thought this is not. I like writing things that aren't straightforward. I
Mhm.
like writing things that make people think about it, and exactly as the way you've described is like, oh, right. And there's another bit with that same character,
Mhm.
um, which I think is in the Bitter Crown. It is in the Bitter Crown, which again, spoilers, but there's, that something is asked of her, and she's like, "Do you even know what I would have to do to do that? Do you
Mhm.
know? Do you know how that would? Do you know how, like, physically? Do you know what that's going to do to me to do that?" And they're like, "Oh, no, we have no idea. What is it?" And she tells them, and they're like, "That's horrific. Don't do that." And so it's kind of like, again, it's about kind of understanding other people's perspectives and being like, we want you to do this. This should be simple for you to do. And it's like, well, no, for me, that's not simple for me to do.
Mhm.
It's incredibly painful for me to do because my life is different than yours. My whole experience of my life is different from yours. And something you've assumed about me isn't true. It's wrong. It's much worse than that. And
Mhm.
so all of those kind of dynamics are things that I find interesting, and um, I like to think about. I like to examine them, and I hope to make other people think about them too.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with it. There's a couple other instances. The other big one that I wanted to mention was, again, because we're talking about the memory aspect of things, but basing it off of the ending of book one, the way that things happen in book two. Again, this isn't spoilers or anything, but there are characters who have their memories altered along the way, just as it is. And a couple of them are like, why would you do that? Like, I was happy that way. And it almost kind of reminded me of the Matrix, where it's
Right.
that type of,
Yeah.
I'm good in this virtual world. Like where
Yeah.
so he's talking and eating the steak and he's just
I
like,
know what
I'm
you
good.
mean. I know exactly the character. Yeah, I know exactly the part of the Matrix you mean. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of it. Messing with people's paradigm um, doesn't always work well.
Mhm.
It doesn't always, uh, that people don't necessarily want their view of the world upturned if they're comfortable with it, and changing it would make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I thought that was a very cool, you don't really see that a lot, especially maybe because it has to start doing with like that memory aspect and the whole Plato's cave allegory and everything like that. But
Mm.
reading this book, where like I said, the first one was like action and adventure and with like the cool themes underneath it, and then this got very still that, but I felt it was almost more, not, it's like, it sounds so criticky and lame, but it's like more mature venture, but like it was like a different way of thinking about things. Like
Yeah.
it hit deep, and it was that was what I wanted to ask, where it was just like, do you think addressing that in this book was kind of reflective of the way that, some people are fine in their sheltered world,
Yeah.
and the way that some of the characters get changed, a couple of them have the reaction where stuff comes back, they throw up and are like, I thank you, like, oh my god, I can't believe I was going through that. And then other people are just like blink and are just like, fuck, like I was good, that like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what happened? So
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I, that's, I mean, that is just the way, looking at the world the way it is now. I mean, that is all just so much of what's in there. One day, I was talking about this again, funnily enough, last night. One day I will do a completely spoiler-filled like interview with people who've read all 4 books when they're all out. And I'll be able to talk about all the different things that I was thinking about, and all the different things that are metaphors for particular things, and all the different issues and specifically that I was trying to get at, and the inspirations behind certain characters and the inspirations behind their motivations, and what I was particularly angry about one day when I was writing a particular scene. But yeah, I mean, the whole series is informed by my experience and feelings about everything that's happening in the world and has been happening in the world since I started writing this series in 2018. So it's all informed by what's happening in the world and how I see it, and the problems that I see, the core fundamental problems that I see that I think need to be addressed somehow to dig us out of the situation we're in.
Mhm. Yeah, well, when book 4 comes out and that panel gets together, please count me in, because I'm staking my claim now. So just
No
remember.
worries. I do have. I posted on my socials today. If you're interested, if you want to have some spoiler-filled conversations, or if anybody else that's read the books wants to have spoiler conversations, I have a Discord, which has spoiler chats for each book in it. So if anybody wants to come and get involved in some spoiler chats and ask me questions, all my socials today, I posted the link to the Discord, so you can you'll find it on Facebook, Blue Sky, or Threads if you want to come and join the Discord and have some spoiler chat.
Perfect. I'm going to join that as soon as we hang up. Well, as soon as I clock out of work. But one of kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on, book 1 obviously was self-published, and then got picked up for the rest of the series. Can you go into just a little bit of the differences between what you experienced when you were publishing yourself and since you've been traditionally published? Just
absolutely. So when you're self-published, writing a book is maybe 50% of your job, because you have so much else you have to do when you're self-published. You have to do your own, you're your own publisher, obviously. You got to arrange the editing, you got to arrange the cover design, you got to do all the technical stuff of formatting the book and uploading it. You've got to do your own marketing, you've got to do your own PR. A lot of authors will sort of say, stay away from reviews, don't read reviews, they're not for you, they're for other authors. You can't do that when you're self-published. You have to go reading all the reviews to look for things you can use to market your book and to amplify them and try to make people pay attention. You got to be prepared to go to people and ask them to read your book and review it, whether that's a blogger that's never heard of you, or whether that's an author that you maybe know a little bit, or maybe even just an author that you admire. There's so much to do, but what comes as a bonus of that is, financially, you get a bigger cut of the sale of the book price, which is it's if you do very, very well, then that makes a difference. But what you get is speed. You can react very quickly. You can finish a book and get it out, and you don't have to worry about a 6-month lead time between it being finished and actually hitting the shelves. And so swapping over to trad, the things that change are suddenly you've got a support team who are doing all that stuff, like, they're doing all your technical stuff and your covers and all that kind of stuff. You still do an awful lot of marketing. You still, you spend time doing interviews like this, which I really enjoy doing. you still have to do a lot of this. You have to get out and talk about the book, because it doesn't sell itself unless, you know, people have heard of you and they've got some idea who you are. So you still do a lot of this stuff, and it slows down massively. You know, the publishing industry is a huge tanker, and it takes a long time to turn around. You know, as I said, I think I handed in the Damned King, the first draft of the Damned King, like last May, June, and this is it now, coming out now. And that is just the way the industry works and how long it takes for everything to happen. So you lose speed and you lose some control. You get input on things like covers and such, but ultimately, you know, you don't have a veto. Ultimately, the publisher makes the decision on what the cover is going to be, and they might, you know, they might veto your title, for example. Like unfortunately, book 4 in this series was going to be called The Bloody Throne, and it's been The Bloody Throne all the time I've been thinking of this series. And then not long ago, my editor emailed me and was like, "I'm really sorry. I've just discovered we published a book called The Bloody Throne like 3 years ago, and we can't do another one." I was like, "Oh, okay." So now and this is the only one I've had to change. The first 3 were all the names I wanted. And this is going to be the first one of the 4 that I'm going to have to change, because they can't do another one with the same title so soon after doing one with that name already. So, yeah, but you know, there are swings and roundabouts of both. I think the thing with moving to traditional is there still exists definitely a bar where people take you more seriously, and it just is there. And whether or not it should be there is substantially up for debate, because there's some really great stuff being done in self-publishing that deserves a hell of a lot of credit and a lot of credibility. And it's 2 different aspects to the way to go about publishing and the way you go about finding your audience. And the other practical thing is, traditionally published, you can get yourself into bookshops, and it's just damn near impossible to get to get a paperback into any kind of bookshop chain as a self-published author. It's just, you know, trying to snowball on hell chance of getting them in. It's so difficult. So they're very different. I consider myself kind of hybrid now. You know, my first book, Carpet Diem, is still self-published. I would self-publish again in the future. If I wrote something that didn't get picked up by a publisher, I would not hesitate to self-publish it if I wanted to get it out there. So they're different animals, and they both have their positives and negatives.
And what advice would you give for people looking to advance like that?
Oh, I mean, take into account everything I've just said in terms of, you know, if it depends what you want out of it. You know, if what you really want is to see your book on a Waterstones or a Barnes and Noble bookshelf, then, you know, pursue the traditional route, which means, you know, write a book, make it as good as you can, and then submit it to agents and see how you get on with that. If your aspiration is to be published and find readers and have more control, especially if you have some experience of kind of business and marketing, you know, a friend of mine who is a self-published crime writer is a massive success. She treated it exactly like a business, and she still does to this day, and has sold millions of books. She has an incredible career. She's extremely well off now. And when I met her, she was just getting started. But she had the business head for it. She had the, you know, the analytics, the marketing, and she just crushed it because she had all that business experience behind the ability to write good books. So, you know, if that's you, then maybe that's a better way to go. The people I know probably making the most money are the people that are really crushing it in self-publishing. So it depends what you want. The thing about self-publishing is that we are in a situation now because of Amazon's platform that pretty much anybody can self-publish. And I think that's where the negative view of it comes from, is that, you know, anybody can put stuff up, and so it's difficult to break through. But there are ways to do that now. You know, the SPFBO competition that I won is one way of kind of, it's almost like a filtering process of people saying, okay, these books are worth your attention. You should look at these books. These are good books. They're good quality. They're on a level with traditionally published books that, you know, you can trust that you're going to get a good book out of this. So there are mechanisms like that out there. It depends what you want. There's a lot more work in being self-published, and there's a wider audience available to you traditionally published, but there's more gatekeeping and hurdles to get through to get to that side.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. It's something that I never considered, but you do really kind of have to be like a jack of all trades if that's the route you want to go. Because I see so many people just juggling different things, and it's just like, you know, a lot of people, you know, they just want to write and get their stuff out there, and then it's just like I have to promote, like I have to come up with minute-long TikToks so I can do like this isn't what I signed up for, but it's like that type of thing where it's like I personally never considered it because I'm still only like probably like 2 years in the blog game, not even self-published game, but just watching behind the scenes, and I see so many people with so much talent going through it, and then it's just like, you know, got to make my reels, got to do this, and it's just like I never really thought of that. So it's interesting to hear.
There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. I think the biggest thing I would say, though, and I've said this to a few people, and they haven't necessarily taken the advice, is don't rush. Do not finish a first draft and be like, great, I've written my book, now I'm going to put it up, because your first draft ain't done. Like your first draft is, I love the quote that is possibly apocryphally attributed to Terry Pratchett, is the first draft is just you telling yourself the story. And that's really important. Like your first draft is not done. Great. Finishing the book, that is step one. You're finishing the full draft of the book, massive achievement, be proud of it. But then spend some time making it the best you can make it. And then, if you can possibly afford it, get a professional editor to come in and work with you to make it better. Because you can't see your own mistakes. No matter how good a writer you are, you can't see your own mistakes. You need somebody else to come in with the perspective to work with you and make it better. And that is all editors are trying to do. They're just trying to come in and go, here are ways in which this can maybe be better. Let's make this the best it can possibly be. So don't rush. Don't be in a hurry to get published. Make sure you publish it and make it the best it can be. Because if you put out a book, if it's your first book, you put out a debut book and it's not good, it's not the best you could make it, you don't necessarily get a second chance to make that first impression. Any readers who pick that up and take a chance on you and they find that it wasn't up to standard, they didn't like it, they probably won't pick up another book by you. You've lost them. So make it the best you can make it and don't be in a hurry.
Very good advice. It's interesting. It's like I said, it's that was all new stuff for me to hear, and I think I've asked one other person, and he also said editor. Like, make sure you splurge. If you're splurging, it has to be a cover artist and an editor.
Yep, completely agree. Absolutely, definitely. If you've got the money, cover artist, editor, and preferably proofreader too.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially with you as a hybrid, to have that input on both sides of things. So I'm appreciative, and I'm sure others will be of that advice and input.
Sure.
So since this book that just came out was the oh my god, I'm blanking. Oh my god, what's the second Star Wars movie? The original?
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. Wow.
Yeah.
That was bad. So since this was The Empire Strikes Back, when is Return coming out?
I'm writing it right now. I'm about 46,000 words into it. My rough target for a first draft is around 150K. And I'm hoping to hand in a first draft maybe by the end of the year. I saw that there's I don't know where they've picked it up from, but Amazon seems to think it's coming out in July next year, which is news to me. And I'm pretty sure it's probably news to Orbit as well.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah, I don't know why. I don't know where that date came from. They must have picked it up from somewhere, but I don't know where. But I'm hopeful that if I can get it handed in by the end of the year, which is what I'm going to try to do, then with a following wind, hopefully it will be out at least by the end of next year. Worst case, early 27. But my hope is that we can get it out next year.
Awesome. And besides book 4, do you have anything coming down the pipeline?
There are several things that I am thinking about that might happen, but nothing that I can talk about yet. But there are multiple things that I have sort of pitched to my agent and said, "What do you think?" We're talking about which ones we're going to go with. So we have to see. I mean, it depends. It depends what publishers are interested in as much as anything else. But I fundamentally had 5 completely different ideas, which we've whittled down to potentially 3 with one favorite. So we'll see which one that ends up being. But yeah, I mean, we will see. We will see what comes next. And hey, I mean, we will see whether it ends up with a traditional publisher or whether it ends up self-published. I don't know. We just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and wait and see we will. Can you, before heading off, just tell everyone where to find you on the socials? Because I'm going to go join that Discord now so I can keep talking about this. But of
course,
I
have a link tree that will link you to everything. So I have my link tree is Justin Lee Anderson author. So my link tree will take you to everything. So if you need to remember one thing, remember that. But the main platforms I'm on Blue Sky as justinleeanderson.com, which is also my website address. And then I'm on all the Meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram and Threads as Justin Lee Anderson author.
Perfect. So everyone go and check that out. Be sure to buy book 3. Damn King just came out yesterday. I am going to pick it up immediately. You have put a major dent in my TBR. I'm trying to get caught up on the people I'm talking to next month in October, but I think this one is going to have to take priority over it.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate it very much. I am very grateful that when I reached out and said, "Hey, I have 40 followers on Spotify. If you want to join me," you were like, "Hell yeah!" And
absolutely,
no hesitation. So I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And we'll talk to everyone in the chat soon. Go follow him and buy his book right now. And we will be back at the same time next week, actually. I'm talking with someone else in your time zone over there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, R.A. Sandpiper. So that's going to be next week. And
cool.
Around the same time, I'm enjoying these work time lunch break chats. But yeah, thank you again for joining me, and have a good night over there.
Thank you very much. I can smell the pizza cooking downstairs, so I'm looking forward to getting some dinner.
Oh my God, I'm so hungry. Yeah, go enjoy an extra one for me, please.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good night.
Cheers.